Charles Oliveira secretly and quietly becoming the most interesting champion in the UFC?
I'm proving people wrong. That is what he's done his entire career.
People think of Oliveira as not being a monster because there's times that people have beaten him. Like Paul Felder smashed him, Cub Swanson KO'd him. Guys have beaten him, but he got better. See, he's been around a long ass time, but he came into his own over the last few years.
Charles has spent over 12 years in the UFC and was in it from when he was 21 years old.
If we've learned one thing about Do Bronx, is that this dude is essentially a cyborg. He gets on the gas and he goes forward from minute number 1.
No, you don't want that ground game.
Yeah.
His ground game is so elite.
So
He's got the most submissions in the history of the sport. Because I watched the way he finishes submissions, the way he syncs things up. I mean, it is top of the food chain stuff.
This guy's one tenacious, tough son of a bitch. And I mean that as a compliment.
He is legitimately one of the best fighters I have ever seen in my entire life. But we have seen dudes like Anderson Silva, George St. Pierre, Khabib Nurmagomedov.
At that time, it was Khabib time, now Charles time.
According to the UFC, he is no longer their UFC Lightweight Champion.
The storyline has completely changed now with this weight cut issue. Where is Charles Oliveira's head right now?
A lot of regret.
Can you give us your thoughts on this whole weight fiasco and him losing the belt?
I mean, it's a nightmare. I'm sure in the minds of the media and fight fans, Oliveira is the champion, you know? But technically, he's the #1 contender now.
The champion has a name, and it's Charles Oliveira from the Bronx.
When you hear the phrase Bronx, you probably have pictures in mind of the ghettos in New York. However, recently, that nickname is more and more associated with a man born in the favelas in São Paulo. Those favelas are also nicknamed Bronx. The man is Charles Oliveira. Raised in poverty in the neighborhood of Guarujá, São Paulo, Charles's humble beginnings led him to be part of Brazil's workforce very early in life.
Minha mãe e meu pai não sabem nem ler nem escrever. Meu pai sabe bem pouco. Meu pai e minha mãe trabalharam em 2 empregos. Minha mãe trabalhava de faxineira na escola e ela saía de lá e ia para casa do dono da escola para trabalhar de faxineira. Meu pai trabalhava na feira, vendendo ovos e trabalhava no matador, irmão.
As a child, he often helped his mother sell cheese salads from a trailer.
Sempre vivi nisso aqui. Então chegou uma época que a gente trabalhava vendendo, você imagina, mais moleque, na Guarujá, você vendendo queijinho. Todo mundo que estudava com você te ver, vendendo sorvete. Caraca, o lutador lá, o Charles lá, e aí, Charles, queijinho, pá. Minha vida inteira. Nunca passei fome. Tinha isso pra dividir pra 3. Você comia aquele negócio, você ficava um pouquinho ali de fome, queria que tal, mas pelo menos você tinha aquilo ali pra você comer. Então, qual que era a preocupação da minha mãe? O que os filhos iam ser? Então, minha mãe colocou a gente num monte de esporte. Natação, judô, karatê. Uma coisa que eu falo muito pra galera, minha mãe sempre falou assim, nunca sonha abaixo, sempre sonha alto. Não sonha em ter um Fusca, sonha em ter uma Ferrari. Tá ligado? Desde moleque, tipo, fez esse bagulho.
It was a difficult upbringing, but through this line of work, he met and made friends with a few kids who trained jiu-jitsu. Charles started training at around 12 years old when those friends invited him to train at a local grappling academy.
Com 12 anos de idade, sabe, o jiu-jitsu me ajudou, eu me apaixonei, eu me encontrei de tudo aquilo que eu fiz, eu falei, mano, é isso que eu quero. O que eu me apaixonei foi pelo jiu-jitsu.
When that bully grabs you and holds on to you and won't let you leave, that is when you need to know how to grapple.
Tipo, eu queria muito. Minha mãe falava assim, eu só vejo esse moleque quando ele sai pra escola e quando ele chega da academia. Por que que eu fazia? Eu ia pra escola já com o kimoninho, voltava e ficava o dia inteiro na academia. Chegava só pra dormir. Minha mãe, tem uma época que minha mãe falou assim, ó. E na época, um kimono. O pessoal fala, mano, você não lava o kimono? Eu faço lavando no treino.
Então você cheirava peixe.
Podre.
Although Oliveira's guardians could not afford Charles's tuition, his uncle, Paulo, knew the instructor and intervened on his behalf, so the young man could train on a scholarship-type status.
Paulo, um falecido amigo nosso, tipo, falou assim, pô, posso levar vocês, levar os meninos pra luta, tal. Eu vivo isso, eu respiro isso, eu gosto disso, sabe? De ver as pessoas treinar, de aprender coisas novas, de agregar coisas novas. Eu vivo disso, eu gosto disso, é isso que é a minha paixão. Tudo graças ao bom Deus, tudo aquilo que eu lutei, eu ganhei no mundo do jiu-jitsu, eu ganhei muita coisa no mundo do jiu-jitsu.
Então você demorou pra você falar assim, caralho, sou foda no jiu-jitsu, assim, sou bom?
Eu treinei em um mês e eu fui lutar um campeonato paulista, um fechado, e eu fui campeão do fechado.
The average person really doesn't know how helpless they are until a jiu-jitsu black belt grabs a hold of you. And then you just go, oh shit, like I'm helpless. A jiu-jitsu black belt is just gonna close the distance and he's just gonna squeeze your fucking neck.
A gente quer que a pessoa viva do esporte pra ela, tipo, ter uma vida melhor, sabe? Ter um corpo melhor, ter um espírito melhor. Eu acho que
there's guys that I will roll with that are weaker than me, smaller than me, and tap me every time I roll with them.
Quando você faz um esporte, você tem, sabe? Você tem um corpo melhor, você se sente bem. Você tem um espírito melhor, você acorda melhor.
Charles got the nickname Do Bronx, translating to from Bronx, since he trained in a gym that was also called Bronx. But the nickname stuck after one of his first professional fights in Brazil, where Charles Oliveira wouldn't do.
Por que Charles Do Bronx?
Bronx porque nos Estados Unidos tem um Bronx, e quando a gente lutava jiu-jitsu, tipo, quando chegava os caras falavam assim, molecada do Bronx aí, por quê? Chegava os neguinhos, filho, de kimono nas costas, só louco, e os caras, os Mike do Bronx aí, os Mike do Bronx.
Of course, his nickname Do Bronx, that's a big fuck you to his haters. They would call him Do Bronx as an insult.
Quando eu fui lutar o primeiro evento, né, de MMA, aí o cara chegou pra mim e falou, filho, deixa eu te falar uma coisa aqui pra tu no segredo. Você já é o mais leve, você não tem luta, vai colocar Charles Oliveira? Coloca alguma coisa aí. Não, Charles Oliveira, mano, não sei, esse bagulho aí mesmo. Aí o cara tá do meu lado falando, você não é favela, você não é periferia, coloca do Bronx. Eu falei, coloca esse bagulho aí mesmo.
Everything about Charles's past seems to involve some kind of violence and adversity. After all, he was raised in the favelas, notorious for the daily violence that invades the families that live in those small, impoverished communities.
The amount of people that were murdered in Brazil in 2017, I believe it was double, more than double the amount that were murdered in Syria.
Essa era a preocupação da minha mãe, né? Perdi amigos pro crime, infelizmente alguns morreram, outros estão presos.
Seeing people being murdered is practically a guarantee. One of those people was a man named Paulo, who was the father of one of Charles's friends that introduced him to jiu-jitsu. Paulo was a role model to Charles and also a mentor. He taught him everything he knew about the martial arts. Sadly, he was killed 2 years after, and never got to see what Charles did for himself in the sport, but also in life. If that wasn't enough, Charles endured life-altering medical issues while growing up. When he was only 9 years old, Charles Oliveira was told he couldn't walk. He was diagnosed with abnormal heart murmurs and rheumatoid arthritis.
When he was born, he developed bone rheumatism, and he also had heart murmurs. He was told by the doctors he would never walk again.
He was hospitalized for the next 2 years and only left the hospital at a tender age of 11 years old. At the time, Oliveira was mad for soccer and imagined a future on the stadium grass.
Na realidade, vim de dentro da comunidade, então todo moleque de uma comunidade sonha em ser jogador de futebol. Sonha de ser todo moleque.
However, the doctors told him that he shouldn't play sports anymore, otherwise he risks going back to the hospital bed.
He was told he would never play football. He was told that he would have to have injections every 2 weeks for the rest of his life.
His mother recalls, I slept on the hospital floor by his bed. I woke up at 5 in the morning to work and then went back to the hospital. Sometimes I went 1 month without going home, just going from the hospital to work and back. It was a devastating piece of news to hear for young Charles. How did he react? By starting to train jiu-jitsu 2 weeks after leaving the hospital.
Now he's talking about he can't see very well. I see 3.
Eu vejo 3, né? Eu tô batendo no do meio, tá tudo certo.
Get the one in the middle. Right. If you do take a look, they got these great big Coke bottle glasses.
Nunca me atrapalhou na luta. Sempre, tipo, quando eu entro sem o óculos, às vezes eu entro de óculos, às vezes eu entro sem óculos. E tipo, mano, eu tiro o óculos normal, eu consigo enxergar meu adversário do outro lado. Deus me abençoa tanto que eu consigo enxergar no normal.
He already saw success only after a month after leaving the hospital. His brother recalls, when we went back to the doctor's office and the doctor said we couldn't do it, Charles had 2 gold medals already. Oliveira continued receiving the injections up until the age of 18, when he no longer suffered with any problems in his limbs. Charles's dedication and perseverance showed from an early age and would define his later career successes. After years of practicing and winning jiu-jitsu competitions, Charles set his sights on the MMA world. He began his amateur and then professional MMA career in 2008 at the age of 19 in his home country of Brazil. During that period, he compiled a record of 12-0 with 6 knockouts and 5 submissions.
E minha mãe não queria que eu fosse lutador de MMA, minha mãe queria que eu fosse lutador de jiu-jitsu. Só que a primeira vez que eu lutei, 3 lutas na noite, eu ganhei dos caras e eu ganhei dinheiro. Eu falei, opa, eu posso fazer isso aqui para dar algo melhor para minha família.
On 3 separate occasions, Oliveira notched multiple wins on the same night. His professional debut came at the Predator FC 9 welterweight Grand Prix event. In the first round, Oliveira defeated Jackson Ponches via submission rear naked choke. The win advanced into the second stage of the tournament held the same night. In the second fight of the tournament, Oliveira won against future UFC fighter Viscardi Andrade by TKO and advanced to the final round of the tournament. I should note that the tournament was a welterweight forward one, but Oliveira barely weighed 155 pounds. Oliveira won the tournament by defeating Diego Braga via TKO in the first round of the fight.
Porque eu lutei jiu-jitsu a vida inteira, mestrão. A vida inteira. E aí quando eu fui pro MMA, que eu lutei esse GP, foi a primeira vez que eu ganhei dinheiro na vida.
Then, Oliveira entered into another tournament.
15 dias depois eu lutei outro GP de 3 lutas. 15 dias depois, eu ganhei de novo.
Where he defeated Daniel Fernandez and Aline Silva by knockout and technical knockout. Oliveira submitted 3 opponents in a row over the next few months, including Bellator veteran Alexander Bezerra, and also won a split decision against Eduardo Pashu. In February 2010, Oliveira once again competed twice in one night, defeating Rosanildo Rocha by submission in the first round and Diego Battaglia by a slam, knocked out cold.
Sabe, aí eu perguntei pros caras que eram os caras bom, eu falei, mano, e aí, o que são os caras? Mano, você tem talento, mano, você tem talento.
Despite being a professional MMA competitor since 2008, Charles by then had mainly fought in small Brazilian promotions until his move to the UFC in 2010. The wins that he got either by submitting or TKOing his opponents have earned him a coveted spot in the UFC roster. Newer fans of the sport see Oliveira as a new face since his rise to the championship. But this man has been part of the organization for over a decade.
Foi que ano que você entrou pra UFC?
Há 11 anos atrás, irmão. 2010.
Upon his arrival to the UFC, despite being just 21 years old, he would see success in the octagon immediately.
Pra mim, a minha primeira luta, geralmente todo mundo fala que quando vai lutar, a primeira luta dá aquela pressão, aquele frio na barriga, aquela coisa. Pra mim, eu não tive isso. Por que eu não tive isso? Porque eu assinei 10 contratos do UFC mentirosos. Os empresários da época chegaram e falaram assim, ó, tem um contrato seu pra assinar com o UFC. Que quando eu assinei o verdadeiro contrato...
Oliveira made his UFC debut in August 2010. It was a fight against Darren Elkins, which he won by submission, and earned the Submission of the Night award. Elkins was 12-1 at the time, and had already had a UFC win under his belt. when Elkins lifted Oliveira up for a slam just seconds after the bout started. It seemed Oliveira was to have a wake-up call to start his UFC career. Instead, the Brazilian showcased his superior submission skills. He immediately scrambled into a position in which he could lock in a triangle choke and then adjust to an armbar.
O cara me botou pra baixo, eu fiz uma transição do triângulo para armlock e peguei.
He's got the arm and the triangle together, wrapped up. There's beautiful technique here. I mean, he's just doing everything perfect.
Elkins couldn't do anything but tap, giving Oliveira his first UFC win in his debut.
The winner by tap out due to an armbar, Charles Do Bronx Oliveira.
Hello, San Diego. Hello, thank you, UFC. Thank you, San Diego.
After his win over Elkins, he went on to gather another win, this time over Efrain Escudero at UFC Fight Night 22, again via a submission.
The world found out about him was Efrain Escudero, who won the Ultimate Fighter. So, who was a very good fighter himself. He fought Oliveira, and Oliveira took his back same way, standing up, and choked him out. And that's when we first saw him.
Quando essa luta com o Efrain Escudeiro, aquela que vocês viram finalizar em pé, ele tinha ficado, acho que foi 5 ou foi 4 quilos acima do peso, e eu aceitei a luta. Eu tentava botar ele pra baixo, ele me jogava de tudo que era jeito, e ele batia de mão, mano, ficou uns caroços aqui, teve um momento da luta que eu tipo, levanta a guarda, e eu tipo pensava, vem você levantar a guarda aqui.
His years of perfecting his ground game were paying dividends in the octagon. But soon he would be humbled, as fighters often do at the greatest stage. When he signed with the UFC, Charles's father told him something that he remembers to this day. It's easy to get there, the hardest thing is to stay.
Quando eu assinei, meu pai falou assim, ó, difícil foi chegar, fácil foi chegar, difícil se manter. Eu falei, meu pai, um dia nós vai ser campeão. Um dia eu vou trazer esse cinturão pra casa, não sei quando, mas a gente vai trazer.
Oliveira would find out that these words were true soon enough. At UFC 124, he fought Jim Miller, a UFC veteran with a rich background in fighting the biggest names in the sport, often finding himself on the winning side.
They have a big fight coming up against Charles Oliveira. You know, new to the UFC, very flashy, making some waves. He has to go through you first. You have a great ground game as well. So what can we expect in this fight?
I'm expecting a fast-paced fight. He comes after guys. So that's what I'm looking forward to, you know?
Tinha 20 anos na época, 21 anos na época. Então, tipo, muita sede de vitória. E aí começou a vir, aí eu perdi a primeira. Pô.
It took only 2 minutes for Charles to lose the bout. Not only did he lose, he lost via knee bar submission, where he was the strongest.
Foda, irmão, porque tipo assim, quando eu perdi naquilo que eu sei fazer demais, que era jiu-jitsu. Cara, fiz de tudo na luta, peguei de tudo que era jeito, mas eu não tinha pressão. Aí o cara foi e pegou justamente a perna machucada. Finalizado, porque eu estourei o ligamento do joelho treinando, tipo, 10, 15, 20 dias, um mês antes da luta. E aí, eu quis a luta de qualquer forma, tá ligado? Falei, não vou sair da luta e tal.
The fight would be a wake-up call for Charles. There are simply no easy fights in the UFC, and he would need to be at his best to defeat whoever stands on the opposite side of the octagon.
Jim Miller, that was brilliant, man. He went for your leg, you turned it around on him and submitted his.
E aí, tipo, esses caras falavam pros meus pais, falei, tá vendo? Falei, quando chegasse na hora dos bons, ele, tipo, os que eu batia era tudo ruim. Quando chegar na época dos bons, ele ia perder, tá ligado? Ele não ia andar.
You know, he's got to get up tomorrow morning and look at himself in the mirror and figure out who he is and what he wants to do. There is no shame in getting here and finding out that you're not it.
His next fight would be one that threatened to put a smear on his career. Oliveira would face Nick Lentz in a preliminary bout during the June 26 UFC on vs4 event.
And right away you see the very fast-paced stand-up of Charles Oliveira.
In the second round of the fight, he landed an illegal knee to the downed Lentz that referee Chip Snyder failed to see. The illegal blow allowed the Brazilian to secure a rear naked choke and pick up the victory shortly after. Lentz suffered a swollen eye socket as a result, but his camp protested the decision.
All right, the commissioner's talking to the referee.
After reviewing the bout, Pennsylvania State Athletic Commission Executive Director Greg Serb stated that the fight's decision will be overruled and changed to a no contest. Charles would have to wait for his third victory in the octagon. Instead of finding one, his next fight would be a brutal setback. It was a fight against Donald the Cowboy Cerrone.
When you look at Charles' style, very aggressive, which kind of plays into your style a little bit. You know, very aggressive. You love those kind of fights. Do you think this has that kind of potential?
Absolutely. This is going to be a bomb run, baby.
Cerrone outstruck Oliveira and constantly pressed forward with a single aim, finishing him. He landed many precise combinations and devastating leg kicks. Eventually, Cerrone landed a hard body shot that hurt Oliveira and swarmed all over him with a fury of punches that made the referee call the fight.
Talk about your stand-up tonight, because it was sharp.
That's just what I do. Kickboxing's my thing, you know, so.
Charles bounced back from that loss with two subsequent wins against Eric Wisely and Jonathan Brookins, both of them submissions.
Quando eu entrei no Ultimate, eu falei que ia melhorar em tudo. Pô, meu jiu-jitsu cada vez mais, sempre mais ágil, indo pra cima.
There's things you can get away with other fighters that you cannot get away with Oliveira.
Pô, tô treinando muito Muay Thai, muito boxe, a parte do MMA, então graças a Deus tá dando resultado.
After the loss from Cerrone, Oliveira went down to featherweight in hopes that he'll better manage his competition there. However, after winning those two bouts, he again faced a losing streak against legends Cub Swanson and Frankie Edgar. The loss against Swanson was a particularly vicious one.
Cub is more of an in-and-out guy, and he keeps his hands down low and sneaks shots on you. He does a lot of weird shit.
As he lost due to TKO after Swanson caught him flush to the left eye.
Good right hand over the top. And he's hurt. Yeah, he's done.
And it is all over.
He's done.
Declaring the winner by knockout, Cub Swanson.
Frankie Edgar and Charles Oliveira, big featherweight matchup here tonight in Las Vegas.
He hurt him. He hurt him with the right hand. He hurt him.
Frankie, one of the busiest takedown artists in the UFC.
Win, lose, or draw, that Charles Oliveira kid is world class. What a battle!
The story of Oliveira's career, as you can already see, is one that has its ups and downs.
Ninguém vai ser invicto pro resto da vida, ninguém vai ser o melhor pro resto da vida, tá ligado? Então, tipo, sou um cara muito de fé, igual eu falei, eu acho que, tipo, era os momentos de perder, foi os momentos certos, tá ligado?
After the loss to Edgar, Oliveira quickly rebounded with 4 consecutive wins against Andy Ogle, Hatsuhioki, Jeremy Stevens, and Nick Lentz. The win against Ogle was of particular significance since Oliveira got to show his talent in front of his home crowd. At the UFC Fight Night 36 that was held at the Arena Jaragua in Jaragua do Sul, Brazil. During the fight, Oliveira reminded everyone of the submission artist that he is. He locked Ogle in a super tight triangle choke from the bottom that immediately made him tap.
Look at this, Oliveira with the triangle choke. He cinched it in beautifully. Those legs just squeezed the neck of Andy Ogle.
Thus, Oliveira improved his UFC record to 5-4 with his Performance of the Night win. In his next fight, he would again get the Performance of the Night award with his win against Hatsuhioki.
As we get set for this battle at 145.
Beautiful entry into a takedown from Oliveira.
The Brazilian really picking up the pace here, Kenny.
Submitting his opponent with a Darce choke.
And now sitting to guard.
Charles Oliveira, the first to submit Hatsuhioki.
Oliveira was again showing flashes of his brilliance to the world, showing that he's ready for more seasoned opponents. He didn't manage to get the tap from his next opponent, Jeremy Stephens.
Charles Oliveira, yes, that is a featherweight. Do not adjust your televisions. Taking on number 10 in the world, Jeremy Stephens.
But Oliveira again managed to put on a clinic with his relentless effort to submit Stephens. His dominance earned him a unanimous win in the co-main event at the TUF 20 finale event in Las Vegas. The win in the rematch against Nick Lentz earned Oliveira a chance to prove himself on the biggest stage.
Nick Lentz could go out here. That's extremely tight.
Charles Oliveira closes the rivalry.
At UFC Fight Night 74, he fought none other than one of the most talented strikers in the division, the then number 5 ranked Max Holloway, in a title elimination contest.
I'm a fighter, you know, the way I approach fights is like, I approach the fight like it's my first and my last, because you never know in this sport, right?
Oliveira seemed uneasy during the fight, and couldn't get Holloway to the ground, neither managing to hold his own on his feet. Unfortunately, the bout was waved off after just 1 minute and 39 seconds when Oliveira dropped to the floor and appeared to clutch his neck and shoulder region. Holloway was awarded a TKO win, and Oliveira was rushed to the hospital in the Canadian city of Saskatoon.
It's a part of the game, and it's kind of sad to see that happen. You know, this is how we make a living, you know, so all my prayers to Charles. I hope he can have a full recovery.
It was one of the occasions where critics called him a quitter and that he has no heart. The UFC said that Oliveira suffered a micro tear in his esophagus, the muscular tube connecting to the throat with the stomach through which food passes.
Someone said torn esophagus. I saw other people saying his shoulder. I saw people saying was his neck.
Quando eu fiquei internado, alguns repórter louco falou que era esôfago.
What is going on? What is the true story? No, he should come out with a true story, a true statement.
It was an unusual injury that threatened to derail Oliveira's career. Oliveira explained in an interview that 20 days before the fight, he fell on his head during a training session, but still kept training.
Uns 20 dias mais ou menos antes da luta, eu tomei uma queda, eu bati a cabeça, e mesmo assim eu continuei no treino de wrestling.
When he suffered the injury during the Holloway fight, he said that he couldn't move the entirety of the left side of his body, and thought that he would never walk again.
Eu lembro que, tipo, eu na minha cabeça pensava que eu nunca mais ia andar. Eu falei, mano, já era, não ando mais, eu vou ficar paraplégico e tal.
It was 3 days of hell being in the hospital after that fight, echoing his previous stay in a hospital in Brazil when doctors told him he should stay away from intense exercise. But Charles Oliveira is no ordinary man, and the man hates being stuck in the hospital. Just 3 months after the fight with Holloway and his gruesome injury, he got back into the octagon and defeated Miles Jury during the UFC on Fox 17 event on December 19, 2015.
Looking to connect the hands. He's got the hands connected. Now he's hanging on the neck. Jury's in all sorts of trouble.
It's all over! Charles Oliveira!
This sparked another hot and cold streak of wins and losses in both the featherweight and lightweight categories. However, one loss particularly stands out. It was the fight against veteran Paul Felder at UFC 218.
And I'm going to take this line from Dominic Cruz, but Dominic hit it on the head. Paul Felder is one of the toughest human beings I've ever seen in my life.
First and foremost, I'm a fighter. This is what I do.
He is coming for you. He's search and destroy whatever he has to take in the process. If he's got to take 3 to give 1, he'll take that deal. He'll sign off on it right now.
I like to go out there, throw down, and put on exciting fights.
After an early takedown to start the fight, Felder soon found himself in trouble against the more experienced grappler.
tremendous grappling ability. This is his strength.
As Felder looked to scramble back to his feet, Oliveira locked up a Darce choke.
Oliveira sliding that arm through. It looks like he's looking for a Darce choke.
He then rolled to cinch it in tighter as Felder struggled to defend. But Felder wouldn't give in. He did just enough to follow Oliveira from one position to the next. Oliveira finally eased the pressure. But that gave Felder a chance to go to work with Oliveira on strikes before the round ended. Felder soon found himself back on the ground at the start of the second round. Only this time, he maintained a more dominant top position. He showed no fear of Oliveira's submission game. After landing an elbow late in the round, Oliveira appeared to tap on Felder's shoulder. But when referee Dan Mergliotta didn't step in, Felder continued to bash Oliveira with several more hard elbows to the face. Oliveira covered and just waited for the stoppage.
Ele não era dos grandes nomes daquela época na categoria, sabe? Mas era muito duro. Então eu falava, mano, eu pensava, mano, imagina quando chegar no top 5 ali, você é louco? Então, a pancada dele era muito mais forte do que a minha. Se ele, tipo, o UFC falou, não, essa categoria você tem que ficar aqui. Eu falei, mano, então eu tenho que ser forte igual esses caras. Cara, eu lembro que quando eu lutei contra o Paul Felder, que foi minha última derrota, ele era muito mais forte do que eu e eu, mano, eu tomei muita cotovelada.
A series of brutal shots by Paul Felder.
Eu sabia que eu tava com a carinha torta, mas, cara, eu tava vindo andando no aeroporto e todo mundo tava me olhando, né? E eu falei, caraca, mano. Peguei o óculos maior que tinha, que era de mulher, meti o capuz e coloquei na cara e vim embora. Só que eu cheguei em casa, mano, eu queria treinar, e aí quem fala, você é louco, você não tem como treinar. Eu falei, mano, e aí, tipo, eu falava, se eu não treinar com vocês, eu vou treinar em outra equipe. Então, tipo, quando eu saí da minha antiga equipe, eu só fiquei com o macaco, só com a macaco de time. Aí ele falou, mano, você não já foi no shootbox? Vai lá, tá? Irmão, eu nem falo mais no time, falo na família, era na família de verdade.
E os cara que vão treinar contigo lá na shootbox, lá os cara não peida não arrega não?
Você é louco, eles querem me matar, irmão. Mas não tem brincadeira não, eu não brinco lá não, que se brincar os caras me quebram, irmão.
Everybody questioned when we would see the guy that we saw against Paul Felder. The guy that when fatigue set in, he looked for the nearest exit and he walked right through it.
It was a fight that was hard to bear for Oliveira, but it was also a fight that ignited the longest win streak of Charles's career. After that fight, he would go on a tear, winning against his next 11 opponents.
Everyone has told us they are going to break Charles Oliveira. They are going to remind him of those times where he gave up on himself. And now he is fighting with a confidence like he is Superman.
The guillotine, Oliveira's guillotine is nasty. One is great at it.
There's the tap. Charles Oliveira.
And he's so good at cinching up submissions.
Quick on the level change for Oliveira.
Doing body triangles, backpack.
Is under. Look, Charles Oliveira, the most submission wins in UFC history.
Oh yeah, it's over. It's over.
There's the tap. Charles Oliveira does it again.
Oh! This is it.
Who's letting it go? Who's trying for another submission?
And there is the tap.
Charles Oliveira.
Absolutely incredible.
I think this fight's really gonna come down to who can win these kickboxing exchanges. Oh, catches the kick.
The kick and connects on the right.
Big win from Oliveira. And Charles Do Bronx Oliveira doesn't wrap him up. He knocks him out. Wow! Power from Charles Oliveira. Another knockout. His second of the year.
It's clear his losses as a young man shouldn't be seen as imperfections to his record, rather as experience and combat wisdom. The flashes of the champion we see today came first in the fight against Kevin Lee.
Kevin Lee's going to take on Charles Oliveira. That's going to happen in Brazil. Oliveira sure appears to be on fire. He goes out there and gets a win over Kevin Lee. It's going to mean something. Yeah, Oliveira's biting off a little bit more than he can chew. That's true. But with big risk comes big reward.
Charles Oliveira and Kevin Lee competed in the UFC's last event before the COVID-19 pandemic thwarted the promotion's plans. The event was organized without spectators.
Then when they tell us that we're going to fight in front of nobody, it split my focus a little bit.
There doesn't always need to be a crowd. All you need is somebody on the flip side trying to knock you out, and you're going to bring it.
The weigh-ins were also postponed to Saturday morning. Lee missed weight and was coming into the fight 3.5 pounds overweight.
When did you start to worry that this was going to be a problem making 156? By the time I actually got there, checked my weight, it was like too far, too gone, you know?
But Oliveira still put on the performance of a lifetime. Oliveira started aggressively right out of the gate and punished Lee with his jumping kicks to the body. The Brazilian was constantly trying to close the distance and got Lee's nose bruised with his punches in the first minute of the first round. Lee decided to take the fight to the ground.
Kevin ate a couple, he looked a little wobbled, he thought, I know, I'm going to take him down.
But against Oliveira, that's always a bad plan.
And with somebody like Charles Oliveira, come on, you can't do that.
Lee had no response to Oliveira's superior jiu-jitsu.
The jiu-jitsu prowess of Charles Oliveira was on display once again.
Charles Oliveira just looked outstanding.
Charles frequently caught Lee in a heel hook.
He was throwing up submission attempt after submission attempt, and I was convinced he was going to catch him.
And was able to dictate the fight while being on his back.
Nicely defended there. I thought that was going to be the end, and now we've got a triangle. And, you know, the jiu-jitsu of Charles Oliveira is just absolutely beautiful to watch.
Soon enough, Oliveira caught Lee in a guillotine choke, getting the tap.
Another submission! He extends the record, the biggest win of his career.
Like, I didn't approach it in the most professional way that I could.
Kevin Lee's argument saying that he never taps.
It seemed like you were contesting the tap. Afterwards, do you concede now that you did in fact tap? Yeah.
Charles Do Bronx Oliveira!
The fact that he's number 13, I don't understand it. I mean, he looks world championship material.
Oliveira's now in the discussion for title shots.
After the win against Lee, Oliveira was set to face his biggest challenge yet, a fight against Tony Ferguson. Ferguson is notorious for his relentless style of going forward, fearless of whomever stands before him.
Shut up before I ankle pick you. I'm gonna be real, I'm an entertainer. I go out there and entertain.
If this was a scary movie, Tony Ferguson would be that guy.
He's El Cucuy.
Even though he lost his previous bout against Justin Gaethje, he was trying to regain his momentum built by a previous 12-win streak that spanned several years. He was the man people entertained to hold his own with Khabib's ground game after all.
Tony looks excellent. He's got his back.
Oliveira was undaunted though. He was already riding a winning streak on his own, with no signs of stopping.
After I beat him and then he went on that absolute tear, he found that confidence, he changed whatever he needed to, and now I think he's got what it takes to be atop of that division for a long time.
I'm strong as fuck. Yeah, I'm losing weight and I'm getting stronger. Let's snap into it.
If Tony can be very disciplined in this fight and just win the first round, he will win the fight.
I'm up here in front of you as a new man, like a phoenix reborn. I'm on fucking fire, guys. So anybody you fucking put in front of me has got to work harder than me. They better run faster than me. And they better fucking hit me in the right spot.
In addition to this, something changed in the Brazilian's attitude around this time. He seemed more confident, more at ease with his place in the UFC world. He was certain that he would get the win, and confident that he was going to fight for the title soon. He was right. Oliveira put on a master class against Ferguson. For 3 rounds, he manhandled the more seasoned fighter on the ground and on the feet. His improved striking, along with his ever-improving ground game, were no match for Ferguson, who held on due to his never-say-die attitude.
What a spectacular performance so far by Charles Oliveira. Oh my goodness, how good is this guy? It's not just beating him, it's completely dominating him.
In one sequence of the fight, Oliveira had Ferguson's left arm locked in an impeccable armbar, but Tony refused to tap.
You could saw his leg off with a rusty fucking axe. He will not tap.
When Charles transitioned from across the chest to under the underarm, Tony grunted.
Yeah.
And he bared through it. That was beyond human.
Watching that fight, everyone was confident that his arm would break before he could give up.
I mean, 10 out of 10 people tapped to that armbar. The fact that he even made it through the armbars is unbelievable.
That might have been the case had the bell not saved him. It was a sign of Oliveira's will to win, but also a sign that he was outclassed by the Brazilian in every aspect of the sport. After that unanimous win, it was official. Charles Oliveira was a contender for the lightweight title. The echoes of him being a quitter subsided, but haven't yet disappeared fully. After Khabib Nurmagomedov vacated the lightweight title after his win over Justin Gaethje, there was only one man that would be next in line. Charles Oliveira was called to fight for the belt against the newly promoted UFC fighter Iron Michael Chandler. Chandler had only one fight, a knockout win over Dan Hooker in his UFC debut. And many wondered whether he deserved to face Oliveira for the belt. However, Chandler is a tough dude, and he certainly wouldn't cower before the chance he was presented with.
That I came in right away, kicked down the door, said yes to every opportunity, and I show up, I'm a working man, I'm going to say yes when you call.
It was again a comeback tale for Oliveira. In the first round, he absorbed a tremendous amount of pressure from Chandler. The fight was even close to being called in Chandler's favor after he pummeled Oliveira with a series of punches to the head. The first round fully belonged to Chandler, and he had all the momentum. Charles was lucky to escape the round. The tide turned quickly in the second round, though. Oliveira completely shifted the momentum just seconds in, landing a flush left hand on Chandler's chin, using that momentum to get the TKO.
And it was a short left hook that put Chandler down. That was the beginning of the end of that contest, but boy, was it nice. Oliveira also has had really 2 problems in his career. Trouble making weight, problems dealing with adversity. To watch him weather that storm, to watch him deal with that, it was really something quite remarkable. He could have quit. He made a choice to be a champion.
If there was any doubt before the fight, Charles Oliveira finally proved that Saturday night that he isn't just a transitional champion in the aftermath of Khabib Nurmagomedov's retirement. And for those who still weren't convinced, he would go on to prove it again and again. In his first defense of the lightweight title, he faced Dustin the Diamond Poirier.
When you look at Dustin, what he's done, what he's accomplished, he's a bigger guy. I think he has the advantage on his feet. I think if it goes to the ground, obviously Oliveira has the advantage.
Coming into a fight against a guy like Dustin Poirier, who has proved time and time again that not only does he have a ridiculously high-level skill set in every facet of MMA, he also has the durability.
Considered an uncrowned champion after his amazing winning streak. Excluding his Khabib loss, Dustin went on undefeated, 8 wins in a row with 1 no contest. These wins included Jim Miller,
Poirier's history throwing lead. He is swinging.
Anthony Pettis,
Maybe some cartilage popped in between his ribs.
Justin Gaethje,
Gaethje hurt. Dustin Poirier, goodness! Knockout!
Eddie Alvarez,
The pressure from Poirier continues.
Alvarez is done.
Max Holloway,
Massive
He
right
hurt
from
him. These are bad.
Poirier and Holloway go the distance.
Dan Hooker, and of course, his 2 consecutive wins against Conor McGregor.
Dustin the Diamond Poirier.
I do think that Poirier should be, as he is, in the discussion for the best boxer in all of mixed martial arts. What I'm sharing for you is Oliveira is not far behind him. And I think a lot of people don't know that.
I see a lot of similarities between us just in our careers, going up and down 45, 55, the longevity. I mean, this is most UFC experience in title fight history.
Oliveira will give Poirier an opportunity at some point in this fight to beat him. He does in every fight. He checks out of every fight. He comes back. He only checks out for a second or two. He comes back.
A guy who's had a long road, dusted himself off, understood who he was and became a world champion, something I'm trying to do.
Meu pai fala que ali separa os homens das crianças, de verdade. Aquele momento ali, eu não empurro ninguém, eu não falo nada, mas mano, eu tenho que colar, é meu. Olho no olho, irmão.
Well, here's what's interesting about Charles Oliveira. When Charles Oliveira fights, he fights like a berserker.
Again, Oliveira survived a wild opening round, where Poirier knocked him down twice.
Oh, big right hand over the top. He's in trouble. Oh.
He's hurting Oliveira bad.
Oliveira then bounced back in the 3rd round and finished the former interim champion Poirier by submission, similar to how Khabib finished him in their 2019 bout.
That's the difference between Oliveira and these guys. It's like they're all really good standing up. He's really good standing up. So there's kind of like an even playing field. But when that motherfucker gets a hold of you, you're in deep danger.
Oliveira had to walk through hell to survive a wild round 1. But he made Poirier pay by luring him into the kind of pace that Oliveira thrives in. The victory extended Oliveira's UFC record for most career finishes, and provided him with the critical validation of defeating a fighter like Poirier.
Na verdade é o seguinte, o Dustin é o cara mais homem que eu conheci hoje através da luta, né? Acho não, tenho certeza, o cara tinha o mesmo sonho que eu, que era se tornar campeão, o cara bateu na trave 2 vezes, né? E você ir lá e perder, eu acho que deve ser uma coisa, mano, muito dolorida, porque e eu acho que deve ser muito dolorido, mesmo assim o cara fala, mano, eu vou doar $20 mil pra você e tal.
Yeah, I saw a video this week of him showing, where he grew up and where his mom cooked dinner for him. I don't know if I think it was an old video, and saw some of the sights of where he grew up and just how little they had. And it came to me this week, win, lose, or draw. Talked to him after and let him know that me and the Good Fight Foundation would donate $20,000 to his city in Brazil and put the money to wherever they think it needs to be. Obviously, he knows he's a good guy and he knows where the money will go the furthest, so that's what we're gonna do.
Pô, tô aqui em casa, chegou uma mensagem no WhatsApp. Puxa, falei, deixa pra ele. Pô, parabéns pela luta, lutou demais, tal, aquilo tudo, tal. Como é que eu faço pra depositar? Expliquei pra ele toda a situação. Falei, eu tenho uma conta nos Estados Unidos, quer depositar na conta, cai pra cá, eu te mando a nota? Não, Charles, mano, eu confio em você 100%, monta o seu instituto, monta a sua... Faz acontecer porque a gente consegue fazer vários outros fundos, outras coisas, tal. O cara me induziu a eu querer fazer mais.
His second defense would come against Justin Gaethje, who came up from a Fight of the Year bout against Michael Chandler. It was a much anticipated matchup, and another one where Oliveira's opponent is known best for his striking and resilience.
No disrespect to Charles, he is now the undisputed champion, and I can't wait to break his face.
E agora deixa Gate, né? Vindo falando um monte de besteira.
However, the fight was faced with unexpected issues from the onset. Oliveira initially didn't make weight, as he was half a pound over the 155-pound limit. He had an hour to lose that stubborn half pound. But even after that period, the scale stayed the same. Charles would have to vacate the title for failing to make weight.
According to the UFC, he is no longer their UFC Lightweight Champion because he weighed in a half a pound over the 155-pound weight limit.
He didn't make weight. We have rules. He didn't make the weight. He doesn't, the belt is vacant.
This is not a sanctioning body belt. This is not anything but a UFC belt. They can do whatever they want with it. Because at the post-fight press conference, Dana White said what? He said that they are not going to have a security guard watching the scale from here on out.
We got to have a security guard in there where the scale is now. And, it's something we're going to have to do.
He said that. Let me ask you something. If nothing shady happened, why are they hiring a security guard to check on the scale?
Let's go to the digital scale, try to eliminate as much of the human error or human manipulation, for lack of a better way to put it, as possible.
I made weight in the UFC scale on Thursday night, go up to my room, did not consume anything, no water, no food, no anything. We work, we're professionals. I did not do anything wrong.
Now he goes out there, wins the fight, but it doesn't count as a title defense. It's crazy to me. It's crazy to me.
I'm sure in the minds of the media and fight fans, Oliveira is the champion. Technically, he's the #1 contender now.
The fact that he was stripped of the belt, to me, is absolutely criminal. It's a travesty.
Many wondered how Oliveira would respond to the setback. He chose to answer them in the octagon, in the main event of UFC 274 at the Footprint Center in Phoenix, where he again demonstrated that he's the best lightweight in the world. It almost didn't matter that Charles Oliveira had to vacate the lightweight world championship for failing to make weight. Again, the first round provided a few setbacks for Charles. In an action-packed opening sequence, Gaethje managed to knock Oliveira down with his punches. But this insane first round went quickly in favor of Oliveira, after he himself managed to detonate a straight right hand that dropped Gaethje.
Landing a right hand. Big knockdown with a right for Oliveira.
Quickly scrambling to get a hold of his back.
This is not good. You cannot let Oliveira on your back. He's going to take the arm. Yep. Justin's in a lot of trouble here.
Big elbows from Oliveira.
Around the 3-minute, 20-second mark of the first round, he clinched Gaethje in a rear naked choke.
This rear naked choke, and he adjusts, watch.
And made him tap. It was Oliveira's 11th consecutive win, adding another submission to his record.
Charles Oliveira, 11 in a row, and still the best lightweight on planet Earth.
After notching the victory, Oliveira scaled the octagon and kissed Dana White on the forehead. Dana declared Oliveira the #1 contender for the lightweight title.
Dana just said you are the #1 contender. This title is now vacant.
Due to him not making weight, still, Oliveira proved once again that he is on another level in the lightweight division. Even though he's missing the belt, everybody knows who is the true champion. Many doubted him, but he never doubted himself.
O campeão se chama Charles Oliveira, o Charles do Bronx.
Charles Oliveira was screwed. Charles Oliveira is being screwed right now. Charles Oliveira is the lightweight champion of the UFC.
Oliveira dropped the ball. He missed weight. We know that. But forget about that. Who cares? Who cares about half a pound when the man is going out there and absolutely thrilling audiences like that?
Oliveira always knew that he would be champion, even after suffering life-threatening setbacks and injuries. His will never relented. a heart problem, his mentor dying, fear of paralysis in his fight against Holloway, and today, Oliveira stands as the fighter with the most submissions in the game.
Has the record for most finishes in the UFC, most submission wins in the UFC, most performance of the night bonuses. I mean, the guy is an absolute stud.
Who could say that Oliveira is a quitter when all he does in life is get back on the horse? It's said that an easy life makes weak people, and that a hard life makes hard people. It's a recurring theme in UFC fighters we've come to cherish. A life of setbacks, poverty, and misery leading to a life of resolute confidence, relentless work ethic, and a desire to help others. Oliveira's father was right. It's easy to get in the UFC game, but it's hard to stay there. Oliveira has walked a path and proved his mettle.
Não tipo na hora que nós estávamos na multidão, mas sim em casa, que ele pegou, que ele ficou olhando. Tipo, eu chorei, porque tipo, foi uma coisa que a gente, tipo, que ele falou, vai acontecer, eu falei, eu te prometo, vai acontecer, então tipo...
He still lives near his favela in Brazil, only in much better housing. He regularly helps his fellow people in his community to get food, clothing, and other necessities.
A gente acabou de fazer um trabalho da hora no cinema. 70 crianças que nunca tinham estado na cadeira comendo pipoca pra assistir. Vai fazer agora no circo.
I'm in on Oliveira. He stays in the favela. He still helps those people. Like, there's some stuff about him that I really, really do admire.
Nowadays, Charles fights for family, for community, for love towards his deceased mentor, his second father.
Eu nasci pra isso, nasci pra estar aqui. Vocês sabem da minha história. Os médicos falaram que eu não podia jogar uma bola. Hoje eu sou campeão mundial de pesos leves.
Charles Oliveira, you will forever have my respect.
And Charles Oliveira is one of the greatest kids ever to deal with, you know, and he's an absolute warrior and a stud, and getting him to take fights is never hard.
Good job, buddy. Oh, man, you're a bad man.
Sempre na nata no meio do bolo. Então, tipo, só tenho gratidão, cara, gratidão. E agora curtir esse momento, aproveitar esse momento.
It's the kind of thing that makes one wonder. Who could beat a man that is willing to die before he lets down the people he loves? So far, the answer is nobody.
I'm here to support Islam. Islam is a real deal. He's one of the best in the world.
Habib has said for a very long time that Islam Makhachev is the best in the world and he's going to be the next world champion.
Who else? Charles versus Islam. This is the biggest fight in UFC today.
Islam Makhachev, Charles Oliveira, UFC 280, going down from Abu Dhabi, Fight Island.
I know 100% he's gonna give up, because he gave up like how many times versus Pettis, Holloway, many times. Nothing changed, you know.
Everybody said Charles was the champion. I think he was just Khabib let him borrow the belt. But Islam is gonna play with him. He's gonna play with him and he's gonna show its level to this game.
A arrogância deles vai matar eles. A arrogância, tanto de empresário como de ex-lutador. A arrogância vai matar eles.
He say his team and he like arrogant.
The best fights are when both guys know they're gonna win.
Islam Makhachev is gonna be new lightweight champion.
Vocês estão falando um monte de besteira, vocês estão criticando, vocês estão falando um monte de coisa.
I know Oliveira always seems to find a way. But we're talking about a guy that's been dropped like 6 times in his last 2 fights.
He have good striking, he have good knees, he have good kicks, but my game plan, my skills much better than him.
You got to get through Charles Oliveira first. You know what I mean?
Brother, he lost in the UFC 7 times, brother. And this guy champion in my division. I'm very upset.
We have champion, his name is Charles Oliveira. I agree with it, but he's not undisputed. But...
Só que olha só, Khabib, você já deu 3 premonições, né? Sobre mim, as 3 você errou.
I'm here for promote this. Like, of course, I'm gonna talk about my brother because he needs support. That's why I'm here.
Olha só, eu não vou falar que eu vou finalizar ou que eu vou nocautear. Eu vou vencer ele. Escuta só, eu vou vencer Islam Makhachev.
Nobody understands this guy. He doesn't speak English. English is important if you want to make money.
If Islam Makhachev loses to Charles Oliveira, then if Khabib had like one more in him.
Como eu falei, respeito demais pela história que fez, pelo jeito que vendeu a luta. o tempo inteiro sem falar de ninguém, mas agora eu acho que depois que ele parou de lutar, ele tá sendo muito falastrão, fala demais.
People think I don't respect Charles Oliveira. I respect him. Like how I cannot respect him? He have 11 win streak, you know? This is his time. Just give him credit. But please don't forget about Islam too. Islam is there too. He have 10 win streak, you know? They both deserve fight for the title and they have to fight for the title.
O problema da divisão se chama Charles Oliveira. Esse é o problema da divisão.
As of August 2022, our documentary started getting copyright claimed by combat sport promotions. This means, once claimed, we do not earn any money from these videos, despite pouring hundreds of hours into perfecting our content. With your support, we can continue expanding our dedicated production team, and of course, creating one-of-a-kind content here on YouTube. Please show your support to us through our Patreon in the link below. So we're here on YouTube to stay.